Hi, this is Sarah.
And this is Rachel.
And this is the Diaries, a podcast where we rip apart episode by episode the Vampire Diaries. Warning, this is a rewatch podcast, so we bring up tons of spoilers. And as this is like a flashback info dump episode, there's just tons of things to spoil and reference. But we won't spoil the originals, just...
I was just about to say, I'll be fighting for my life to not spoil the originals.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah, this week we're talking about season 3, episode 8, Ordinary People. Obviously, based on what we just said, this is the big like originals flashback and their lore about how they became vampires and some other good reveals.
Yeah, lots of big learnings on a first watch, lots of things to do. So we'll just jump right into it. Yeah, picking up where we left off in the last episode, sort of where they had discovered this cave system. Obviously, Mason Lockwood had come back and shown this to Damon. And we pick up in the caves where Elena and Alaric are walking through. You know, this is below the Lockwood property. And we're finally going to get to see, like, what is in the caves. Because it was not really revealed in the last one. And Alaric is telling Elena to be careful, like, where she shines her flashlight in the caves. Because there are bats down there. And Elena's, like, looking around, like, very nervous. Like, she's really scared of them. And, of course, at the same time that this is happening, from behind her in the darkness, a whisper says, Elena. And she spins around terrified. And it's, of course, just Damon messing with her. The classic, he, like, couldn't resist. Part of me is, like, it feels like he planned that with Alaric. But, you know, Alaric's like, I want no part in this.
Oh, yeah, no. It could be planned, but, no. Alaric is not on that page these days.
Damon was in there for hours, just, like, waiting for the opportunity for Elena to walk by. He knew it was coming. He was ready.
Yeah.
But of course, she, like, you know, they laugh it off because he calls her a scaredy cat. And Alaric is just ignoring them, like, just trying to get
over it.
He wants to get down to business. This is, like, Alaric's specialty.
Yeah.
He thrives in these episodes.
He's living for this, which is, like, fair. Imagine, like, a history teacher or anyone interested in history at all finding this.
Yeah, getting access to, like, hundreds of years worth of like old history and getting to be the first person to discover and figure that out. This is like perfect for him. Yeah. So he's in it. He's taking this seriously. But Damon is like confirming that he still can't get into the cave, that like, you know, whatever's blocking him out won't let him in. He says that even the ancient Lockwoods were anti-vampire, which I just love to imagine that the Lockwoods somehow figured out a way to put this cave into their like official estate. Yeah. And like their will. They must have, because how else is it blocked off? Because I would say it's just a witch put a spell, but they specifically say it's like he's not invited in, rather than saying... Yeah. I don't know, like hinting that it could be a spell. They make it seem like the Lockwoods have put this within their property. Yeah. And they have to invite you in. They got to get Carol down there to like invite Damon in.
They should have. Yeah, they should have. But that's what I was thinking too. I was like, they must just like own this cave, I guess.
That's what it seems like. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that... That's how they position this. I think that's really funny because I think the Lockwoods would do that.
They absolutely would. That feels so them.
Yeah, it passes down in the family estate from person to person. But of course, Elena is able to go into this cave as a human, which is again why I'm like, I don't think it's necessarily witches. It does seem like it's a vampire out kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So Elena goes in and she's looking around the cave and she's shining her flashlight around, and so we get to see all of those cave paintings that she's looking at. And also that Alaric has gone like crazy explorer archaeologist in this thing because it looks like a dig site. There's like huge lights everywhere. Like, where did he get these supplies from? Like,
okay, I'll say it now because I was going to bring it up later. Where did he get these skills? He's doing like archaeological work, anthropological work, linguistic skills. Like,
I don't know.
He's probably a PhD.
That's what I was going to say. He's probably a PhD.
I don't know.
My assumption, and especially based on things we get of Alaric, because he teaches at the college later. So my assumption of Alaric is that he's a lot more educated and in-depth in archaeology than like a regular high school teacher would be, because his goal I don't think was ever to be a high school teacher. I think he only took that job to come to Mystic Falls to find Damon. So he probably is like a PhD and is like crazy, like, you know, educated about these kinds of things. But it's so funny that he just pulls this out and we're like, oh, we forgot he's not just like the random ass history teacher.
Yeah, / vampire hunter on the weekends.
Yeah, and all around alcoholic, lost cause. Whatever he's always saying about himself. Yeah. But yeah, so he has crazy skills and he knows how to set up an archaeology, like a dig, like he's like doing this like so professionally. Yeah, they've got a whole setup. And so Alaric is describing the drawings to Elena, and he's saying that it's a story. And he says, in simple archaeological terms, it's a really, really old story.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not that scientific. But he points out, like, the symbol for the moon and the symbol for a wolf. And obviously Elena puts together a werewolf. And Damon says, as I like to call it, the Lockwood Diaries, Pictionary style.
Thought that was good.
Really funny.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it feels like a Mason reference because they played Pictionary together.
Yeah.
BFFs. Yeah, rip. R.I.P. in peace. So then Elena questions, like, how could the Lockwoods have even done this? Like, if the founders only came in the 1860s to Mystic Falls, like, how could they have even done this? And Alaric says, like, well, the Lockwoods might have come with the founders in the 1860s, but these cave paintings have been here way before that happened. AKA, meaning werewolves generally have been in the area way before the founders were here. Yeah. Which is interesting. This is the first time we're learning a lot of this, like, history, and obviously we know, especially if you've watched originals, how that whole timeline works out. But it's interesting as a first-time, like, Vampire Diaries viewer to be like, interesting. So, like, does that suggest maybe that, like, this is kind of a sidebar, but does this kind of suggest that maybe the Lockwoods haven't always been wolves, that whichever Lockwood came with the founders had a child with somebody who was, like, a native person to the area that was a wolf, and that's how it's carried through?
That's kind of what I was thinking, because I don't want to give anything away from originals, but I'll just say this, like, you get the whole werewolf background lore. Yeah. So, like, if you like this at all and you haven't watched the originals, you
should. You get so much more about.
You get so much more about this, and I actually find it really, really interesting. But yeah, I was thinking the same. It kind of seems like werewolves have been around for a very long time, and then somehow the Lockwoods just sort of became werewolves. Because also, like, there is a name for the Lockwood, there is a name for, like, the tribes of werewolves, and they're not like the Lockwood werewolves, obviously, so, like, I was thinking that means they probably just somehow kind of combined at some point.
I think they established in originals that it is, like, Native American tribes carry the like werewolf gene, and so I guess the suggestion is just that some Lockwood that came with the founders had children with a Native American person. But it's also confusing because we know in the 1860s, I think his name was George Lockwood. He was a werewolf, so I'm like, how? I don't know how all of this works out timing wise, but
I guess that's true.
It's very interesting.
It is,
Either way, so they also could have come as werewolves and then further just established that with wolves in the area. I don't know. But it is really interesting. Again, watch originals just where they break this down more. But it is really interesting to think about how all of this could have worked out. But anyway, so Damon tells Elena, like, this isn't even the best part. Like, this isn't even the part you really want to know about. And so Alaric tells her that there are names in Runic, in the Viking script on the wall, that is like an alphabet that they can translate. And he was able to translate the names to Klaus, Elijah, and Rebekah. And we don't get to hear any other names just yet, because those are the three they obviously were able to recognize and understand what that means.
Yeah. So, and then at this point, we get a little flashback.
Yes.
Of course. Big flashback episode.
Oh, big one, yeah.
It must be, like, late 900s, not 19.
Yeah, 1900s.
Not 19. The 90s. No, late 900s. But we see Rebekah is carving her name in the runic script in the cave. And Klaus is standing behind her, watching her, and he's holding up, like, a wooden torch, watching her. And first of all, I just have to say, he looks so good.
I love
He looks amazing. And so does Rebekah. Rebekah looks beautiful. I love their, like, 900s looks.
I do too.
And Klaus is telling Rebekah while she's carving that their father wouldn't like her using a blade. Obviously, these are old times. Women weren't allowed to
even touch a knife.
Yeah, even be looking at a knife. Not okay. Rebekah being Rebekah, she's been a feminist since day one. She's literally, like, I'll wield a blade if I want to wield a blade. And he never has to know, their father. But Klaus is like, he always finds out.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, Klaus is just very afraid of their father.
And he says
He does say at one point, that he's frightened by him. And Rebekah says, he always finds out because...
You tell him.
Klaus tells him. He tells their father. And this is when Klaus says it's because their father frightens him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rebekah's like, he frightens all of us.
Yeah.
And that's why we stick together as one, always and forever. And they tease each other a little bit more, Klaus and Rebekah. And then he asks for the knife back because she's going to go off and help with dinner. And she hands it to Klaus, like, blade down into his palm. Cutting his palm.
Because he doesn't even say, can I please have the knife back? He says, you go be a woman tending to our dinner. Leave the blades to the men.
Yeah. Yeah,
so she shows it to him.
Yeah, she gives him the blade right down in the palm, and it cuts his palm, and we see it doesn't heal.
Yes.
So we know that we're seeing them as humans before they were turned.
Yeah.
Setting us up for, like, the whole story of how they were turned.
Yeah. And Klaus, like, reacts to, like, getting cut. And it's so funny because Rebekah's like, just be a man. It's a little blood.
Girl.
It's 900. That could have killed him.
There were no antibiotics.
Yeah. That's a rusty blade you just used on a cave wall. That will kill him.
So he could die. He could literally die. Yeah, I had the same thought. I was like,
a little blood?
Okay.
A little infection?
Nothing, but okay.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is such an interesting scene, obviously setting up, like, their relationship with their father as being, like, a scary man and, like, just so notable about their humans and, like, what their relationship was like as humans. So we'll obviously be getting a lot more of all of that, like, the rest of this episode. And so we go back to the caves, back to present day, where Alaric is explaining to Elena that these symbols are the names of the original family, that they were carved there before Mystic Falls and possibly before the whole New World, which obviously, we saw it's 900s.
Yeah.
But still, like, Alaric is able to put that together based on, like, what he's looking at. And Elena's like, it has to be one of Klaus's fakes. This can't be real. Which Damon says he thought the same. Which I love that Damon and Elena, like, have the same thought patterns. Like, they think about things the same way.
Yeah. And I love this callback to all of their fake drawings they did of the Sun and Moon curse.
Oh, totally.
Like,
they know. They know Klaus is known for just faking shit. Just to be like, just to throw people off his path.
Yeah.
So it's a nice callback to that. But Alaric says, like, it could be that. Except that there is one more name on the wall that is of interest. Mikael. And of course that is, like, huge name drop. Elena's like, you mean the vampire hunter who like can kill Klaus? Like that Mikael? And Damon says, as I like to call him, Papa Original. And then it's a title screen. Yeah. That's a crazy information drop.
Yeah, that is a wild drop. I feel like it's not as big as the other one about the original witch, but
they tease that one longer.
They tease it longer. But yeah, this was a wild way to open this episode.
Yeah, because we've started seeing Mikael, like, in the tomb, in the cemetery, and, like, in the 20s. We know he's been following them for a century, trying to kill them. And this is their father.
Yeah.
And of course, that last flashback, we just got this setup that he is this man that they're terrified of, even as human children. So yeah, it's a very interesting setup that Mikael is their father. And then we get one of my most memorable opening sequences. This opening sequence is so iconic to me. They're playing Don't Stop, and Alaric is taking photos in the cave to the beat of the music. They cut the, like, photos perfectly.
It's so good. I love it.
It's so brilliant. It's so fun. It, like, adds such a unique energy to this episode. I love this opening sequence.
It's also so that era, the song.
Oh, totally.
Obviously. But it still works so well.
It works perfectly.
It's so good.
Yeah, and it just, it adds, it's nice to have that montage of taking the photos that we get that this is this whole big thing that they're doing. So, yeah, lots of setup for this episode. And, of course, we have to go to Alaric actually, like, examining those photos.
Yeah. After he takes all of these photos, we go quickly to his apartment where he has them all laid out on his desk. Or on, like, the kitchen counter or something. And we see while Alaric is, like, poring over the pictures, Damon and Elena are just doing Elena's vampire hunter training in the background.
Which means Damon's just fucking around. He's just playing.
Exactly. Yeah, because they're obviously no match for each other. So, like, they're just playing, basically. And Damon is telling them that the wall will probably lead them to Mikael because he had the weapon. But they've already found Mikael and lost him. So I guess... like, at this point, he's just kind of, like, escaped.
He thinks there's nothing to learn from the wall, really.
Yeah. And then, at this point, Damon just, like, starts flirting with her. She's, like, pretending like she's going to stake him.
I think she's really trying to stake him.
She might be. She definitely could be. And Damon just, like, easily disarms her and is like, bang, you're dead. And then pretends to, like, go in to bite her neck to feed on her.
Yeah.
Like, they are... on another level. Every episode surprises me. Like, they are basically dating. They're basically a couple.
They totally are. There's no way anyone could look at them and not think that they're, like, together.
Exactly. Yeah. But Elena just like kind of pushes him away, sort of playfully, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then she goes over to look at the photos with Alaric, and Alaric is like still living his history teacher's dreams. Yeah. He's like, I'm done with the Delena flirting. I can't do this. And he's looking at the drawings, and he's saying that they, like the drawings, might tell them what the weapon is that Mikael was supposed to have.
Yeah, so it's still worth it.
Yeah, so it's still worth looking at these pictures. But Elena has another idea. She's like, if the story is about the original family, why don't we go straight to the source? That source, of course, being
Rebekah. Obviously, yeah. Cut straight to the school where we see Rebekah absolutely owning the cheerleading squad.
I know, she's doing flips. She's doing cartwheels.
All sorts of crazy
Oh my god, yeah, she should be like an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, these other girls are like, thank God we finally got like a rock star for the cheerleading team.
We're going to sectionals this year.
Yeah, that's probably what they think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's able to show off. Obviously, as a new girl, she can be like, I'm as good as
I've always been good. Yeah.
But anyway, Elena walks right up to her saying that she wants to talk to Rebekah, and Rebekah immediately is like brushing her off, doesn't really want anything to do with Elena. But Elena is always so ballsy. She is never afraid to like challenge anyone, call them out directly. Yeah. She just not like, you would think she does not care about her life at all, the way she challenges these vampires.
I really don't think she does. Like, based on this and the next episode, she's wild. Elena will
challenge anyone.
Truly, yeah. She'll do anything.
Because she like immediately says to Rebekah that like, you know, she wants to talk, and she shows Rebekah the photo of the wall where Rebekah had carved her name in runic. So she's immediately like, I want to talk about this. Like, immediately calls her out. And Rebekah obviously is rattled immediately. Of course, like, obviously they found this crazy, like, insight into her family. And she's, like, trying to get away, saying, like, that she needs to get back to the girls. Like, homecoming's coming up. Like, she's got stuff to do. And Elena, like, stops her in her tracks by saying, well, then I'll just ask Mikael when we wake him up. Yeah. Elena's crazy. Because that obviously stops Rebekah being like, oh, shit, like, Mikael.
Yeah.
And she says, like, you're bluffing. Like, there's no way. Nobody knows where he is. Like, there's no way. But Elena's like, oh, okay. Like, I'll, like, you know, tell that when I find the Charlotte cemetery or whatever. Yeah, like, whoever's the guy in the Charlotte cemetery. Which terrifies Rebekah because obviously that reveals, like, Elena knows exactly where he is. And as we know, she's already woken him up. And Elena keeps pushing Rebekah to stay. But again, like, Rebekah's like, I need to get back to the girls, like, walks away. And we kind of, like, close up on Rebekah's face as we go into a flashback again. And in this flashback, we finally get to see Elijah. Finally! I forgot, but also didn't really forget how much I missed Elijah.
Same. Oh my god. It's been too long.
Too long.
Yeah. We see back again in like the 900s, it must be, Klaus and Elijah are sword fighting for play.
They have long hair.
Yeah, they have long hair, which I feel like actually really suits Klaus slash Joseph Morgan. But I don't love it for Elijah.
I was going to say the opposite. I don't love it for Klaus, but I love it for Elijah.
Interesting.
So that's funny. Because I also think, like, I love his suits. And I do love his, like, modern hair. But the long hair, and he has these, like, I don't know, like, cut-off shirts.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
His arms look so good. I was like, Elijah's killing it.
Interesting. I thought the same thing about Klaus. I was like, I love his, like, outfit and everything. And I just thought he looked so good.
I thought that about Elijah.
That's so funny. At least we know we wouldn't have to fight over that.
That's true.
We could just each get our own.
Yeah, perfect.
Anyway, they're sword fighting, they're playing, and we see Rebekah and Henrik, a new Michelson sibling that we haven't been introduced to yet, run over to watch them sword fight. And they're all kind of like laughing and having fun. It's very playful. And Klaus at one point like swipes at Elijah and like cuts his belt off of him.
Yeah, to make his siblings laugh.
Yeah, exactly. To be funny and like to be like, I got you. Yeah. And they're all having a good time. But then we all know as rewatchers, Esther and Mikael start to walk over. And Mikael clearly is pissed. And Esther is like trying to talk him down. She's like, they're just having fun. Like, let it be. Like, just let it go. But Mikael approaches and everyone stops laughing. Like, before all of the siblings are like having a good time. Not once Mikael approaches.
Yeah, you immediately know this guy's like such bad news that all of his kids stop laughing when he walks in the room. That's just like abusive dad behavior. That is
literally, yeah, of course. And Mikael asks Klaus to teach him that trick. like the cutting off Elijah's belt trick, and they start sword fighting with each other, and Klaus tries to tell Mikael, like, first of all, Klaus isn't engaging in like the fighting at all.
He's trying to protect himself.
He's literally just like defensive moves only.
Yeah.
And he's trying to tell Mikael that they were just having fun, it was nothing, but Mikael is like, very toxic masculinity. He's like, we fight for our survival. There's no time for us to have fun. Like, teach me about having fun, all these things. And he's just going on and on, saying Klaus is very foolish and impulsive. And then at this point, like, they're still fighting. Or, well, Mikael's fighting. Klaus is still defending.
Mikael's attacking.
Yeah, Mikael's attacking. And at this point, Mikael disarms Klaus and slams Klaus down on his back on the ground. And he puts the sword at Klaus's throat. Mm-hmm. And Esther tries to come in and be like, stop, you've made your point, Mikael. And Mikael just stabs the sword right into the ground next to Klaus's head and tells him that some days it's a miracle he's still alive, boy.
Yeah.
I hate the boy.
I was just going to say, I mean, I hate it, but I love it because it's so iconic.
It works, boy. But it works, but it's like, I hate the intonation.
Oh, it's so
I hate
demeaning.
Exactly.
It is clearly, because he says it like when he pins him down, like, you're foolish and impulsive boy. Like, it's clear, and clearly we see Klaus is, I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but he's a man. He is not 18, like 17. No. He is a man. Yeah. And so to call him like a boy is clearly supposed to be a very demeaning thing. Just further like messing with him. Yeah. And he's like yelling, like, no more laughter. Yeah. Like, he's definitely just taunting Klaus specifically, but in front of his siblings too, which obviously has, that ripple effect. So, not a great family picture we're getting our first look at the originals.
Yeah, we're seeing why they're all very afraid of him.
Yeah. And then we get a quick look at, like, the modern day Rebekah at the school, clearly, like, remembering all of this, like, just looking pensive and kind of thinking about, like, what Elena had clearly just said to her. From there, we go to Alaric's apartment where he's still examining the photos, and he writes on a Post-it note, vampire, and he sticks it on one of the pictures. So clearly we're seeing he's like trying to piece out what these symbols could all mean and trying to learn what that story he was talking about is. And he picks up another picture and he like compares it, and he's looking back and forth between them, and then he switches the vampire Post-it note to the other drawing, and then he writes down werewolf and sticks it to like the second or the first one. So he's like, again, piecing it together, trying to figure out what it means. And it's just so funny, like, watching him like do this. Like, it's interesting, but again, he's loving it. He's living for it. He's like, this is my greatest scientific accomplishment. I'll never be able to write a research paper about it. Like, it's so disappointing.
It is. Yeah, he's putting in the work, literally like doing a PhD dissertation.
The way
he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, Damon and Elena got so lucky that they had a literal historian on the team who was clearly educated in anthropology and like is very well, like, like he knows how to do this stuff. How far could they have possibly gotten with this? Not at all.
Not at all far. Yeah.
They would have been. Elena would have been down there with their cell phone trying to take pictures, and they would have been all dark and blurry.
Like reverse image search.
Yeah. They wouldn't have gotten anyway. So they got lucky that they had Alaric willing to do all of this and clearly enjoying it.
Oh yeah.
Then from outside Alaric's apartment, we see Elena is on the phone. She's like on her way up there, and she's on the phone with Damon, who is also walking down the stairs towards like the city jail, the Forbes jail that we've been seeing a lot of.
The torture chamber.
The torture chamber, yes. And so Elena's telling Damon that she thinks Rebekah will tell her. Like, she thinks she'll be able to get it out of Rebekah, that Rebekah's just scared of Mikael, so she just has to like give it time. And Elena says, like, I just have to engage in a little mean girl power struggle first, which I thought was so funny.
It's funny.
Because then Damon also warns, well, make sure she doesn't power struggle you into a wheelchair. Clearly saying, like, this is not a normal mean girl, Elena.
Yeah,
like,
it's not just going to be, like, being catty.
Yeah,
it's like, she could kill you,
yeah,
but okay.
She actually could kill you if you push her just a little bit too far, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
And Elena says, like, I've got this. Like, it will be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be able to kill Klaus, and then Stefan will be freed of his compulsion, and, like, that it will work. And so then she asks Damon how Stefan looks. Clearly, she knows that Damon's at the jail cell checking on him. And we do see Damon looking through the, like, window in the door. Yeah. And Stefan's, like, chained up to the chair still, and he's just slumped over. Like, he looks like he's asleep or otherwise just, like, knocked out. Like, not much to live for in that situation. He's been in this chair for at least 24 hours, I would assume.
At least. It makes it seem, like, pretty like a little bit longer than that even, because
Lexi advanced the whole thing, so who really knows?
That's true. He feels like it must be really long, but
definitely
could be just a day.
Yeah, and Damon says that Stefan looks pasty and pouty.
Yeah. I thought that was good.
And Elena says he'll have to get over it.
Yeah.
These two, they're really just like on the same wavelength. And so Elena hangs up on him, and she is truly in her taking no shit era from Stefan, from Damon. She's doing her business. And so she goes in, and Alaric is cautioning Elena about Rebekah, that like Rebekah is a 1,000-year-old vampire. Like,
yeah,
she is patient. She's not just gonna like immediately turn around and tell Elena everything she wants to know. But at that exact moment, Elena receives a text from Rebekah saying, "Come over for a chat." So maybe not so much.
No.
Maybe not so patient. And she, of course, shows the phone to Alaric and says, she's a 1,000-year-old vampire who joined the cheerleading squad.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is a different set of rules at play here.
Yeah.
And she again tells Alaric, I've got this. So basically, Elena's like, if there's one thing I know, it's teenage girl politics.
Teenage girls. Yes.
If there's one thing I can help with here, Alaric's got his specialty of historical research. Damon's just like, I don't know what Damon's doing, torturing, whatever. We never know.
Yeah, they have someone who can do like everything they need.
Yeah, it's pretty
Damon
well sorted.
is just a flex. He can do whatever, torture, taking care of Stefan, whatever.
Yeah, but we do go back to pick up where we left off with Damon, like post the phone call. As he's like entering Stefan's cell.
Yeah, we see like Stefan sort of raises his head to look at Damon, and Stefan basically gives Damon a hard time and is like, this will never work, the Lexi program. And it's just another of Elena's plans that never really work out. True.
I love that.
Yeah, and Stefan is asked Damon why he's even there, and Damon responds by telling him, it's family day at vampire rehab.
Yeah.
So I'm paying a visit to my baby brother. And Stefan just tells him to like go away. He's so over this. And Damon is like, no, we're hanging out, little brother bonding. Damon just having a good time with this. And then Stefan just says, Elena may not be safe with Rebekah, trying to, get Damon to go away, like go check on Elena, or, just change the topic generally. And Damon is like, good try, but you're basically sworn to protect Elena. So if you really felt like she was in danger, you'd be like fighting me to get out of here.
Yeah.
And Stefan is like, you got me. Congrats. You got me. Now just go. You can leave now. You're good. And Damon is like, wow, you really have given up. And Stefan is like, no, this is my happy face.
Yeah, and he like smiles, but it's really just like a really uncomfortable grimace.
Yeah, like this is not giving happy in any way.
Yeah.
Which obviously Damon picks up on. And Damon like sort of contemplates that for like a little moment. And then out of nowhere, he just decides to rip off all of the chains that are holding Stefan back, basically freeing him. And Stefan is like, what are you doing? It's obviously not part of Elena's plan. And Damon's like, screw this. We both just need a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damon's going rogue as usual.
Always.
Yeah. I love this scene. It's nice to see the brothers talking again.
Yeah.
My two takeaways from the scene are Damon is an idiot.
Oh, yeah. No, he's dumb. I don't know why he thought this would work. But
And Paul really put his whole Steph-ussy into this scene.
Oh, my God. I was thinking that, too.
I was like, Paul's killing it.
He is. No, I know. I was like, they got really lucky that he does this all so well.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, I feel like Paul definitely seems like he enjoys doing this.
Oh, totally.
Way more than just like the
way more than the
season
tortured Stefan. Yeah, the tortured, I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
I think any actor, it's boring to play like a person who's just like a good, straight, normal person.
Yeah.
You want to play the villain. You want to play someone who's a little rogue. You want to play someone who's complicated.
Yeah.
So he's definitely enjoying that because Stefan's definitely in that era right now.
Oh, for sure.
So it's fun for everybody. For us, for them. Love it. But we have to go back to the Salvatore house where Elena enters and there's loud music blasting. Yeah. Rebekah walks in with a champagne glass and she gives this really friendly, hey, what's up?
I also didn't even think it sounded like Rebekah at first. It sounded like she was trying to do like an American accent or something.
She was.
Yeah, like trying to fit in or something.
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, this is what I was gonna say. Is I really like that line because I do think, first of all, it sounds so unnatural because like, hey, what's up is so modern.
Yeah.
Like obviously she wouldn't have said that 20s, or earlier. So clearly, like my assumption is she heard one of the cheerleaders say that today, and she's like, I'm gonna try this out. I'm gonna wait and say it. And she's like practicing.
No, that's probably so true.
What's up?
Yeah.
Practicing to herself. And so I think she did do it in a little bit of an American accent where it's like, you know, you kind of want to mimic
someone. Yeah, that's so true.
She's
that makes
trying
so much
so
sense.
hard to fit in. I think that really is Rebekah in this episode, and unfortunately the next, which we'll get into being a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Rebekah is trying to fit in, and she's trying to find a place, and she's trying to enjoy her life. And so I do think that, hey, what's up, is exactly like what that was.
Yeah. I'm picturing her in the mirror. What is up? Like the first few tries.
What's up?
What is up?
Yeah. Just over and over again, trying to figure out like the right way to say it. She must be good at adapting from being like 1,000 years old and spending many of those years in boxes.
Yeah, she's in and out of that box every other week.
So she must be good at picking stuff up like that. But it is funny to like, that takes effort. You have to like, you know, decide that you want to like pick up modern slang and like adapt it. And like, we know she got that feather in her hair day one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like she's immediately picking up on modern trends. So
true.
I do love that. The hey, what's up is so modern.
It is. Yeah.
Elena's obviously like, what? Like, what is going on? She's not as cheerful as Rebekah is about this whole situation.
Yeah. She's also like, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah, she literally is like, I want to like talk. Like, let's get down to business. You called me here to talk. And so Rebekah's like, okay, and like calls out. She has this whole runway show, 6 girls in various like clearly homecoming dresses walk in a perfect line. They do a synchronized turn when Rebekah tells them to, and they all like in sync like pose. Like clearly they've been compelled to put on a private runway show for Rebekah, which is so morally wrong, but is so iconic.
So iconic. I would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's so
I would absolutely do that. That is so fun.
Yeah,
I love being hurt. They're just trying on some dresses. This is harmless,
fine.
Especially for Rebekah.
Yeah, it really is. Just leave
really
like a 20 in their pocket, and they just come back like, what was that from? They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Way better than what Stefan, Damon, or Klaus do when they get their hands on random girls.
Exactly. This is truly the difference between women and men.
Yeah,
it's like,
it really
girls
is.
have a fun fashion show. Men kill many innocent people.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true. But anyway, Elena is like, what is going on? Like, wants no part of this. Because Rebekah tells her to pick a homecoming dress for her, and Elena like refuses. She's like, I'm not here to shop.
No.
This is not what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Rebekah's just trying to bond. I'm kind of like, play along. I feel like Elena should know it's better to just play along, make friends, and then Rebekah will actually tell her stuff.
Of course, yeah. Which I think she does kind of get the idea to do after this, but yeah.
Well, yeah, because Rebekah then forces her hand because she like runs to like attack one of the girls, grabbing their neck, and like vamps out like as if she's about to bite them, and that forces Elena to like, you know, pick a dress, and she just blurts out the red one. Yeah. And so Rebekah dismisses the rest of the runway, letting them all, you know, move on. And Rebekah walks towards Elena and says, like, you do not threaten me. You'll learn what I allow you to. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Clearly going back to what we were talking about with Damon and Alaric, where it's like, Rebekah is not just a normal teenage girl.
No.
If Elena pisses her off, there are serious consequences. Now, Rebekah's probably not going to kill Elena because that would piss off Klaus and put Rebekah in a box. However,
a broken arm,
broken leg, two broken legs would kind of be good for Klaus. So
true. Yeah, true.
So make her easier to catch. So yeah.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, she shouldn't be messing with Rebekah so hard. And Elena kind of just nods and like agrees.
Yeah, she's just like,
yep. And Rebekah just walks past, and Elena kind of follows her. So
yeah,
we'll hear more of them this episode.
Yeah, back to our little PhD in progress.
Yeah,
we see someone knocking on Alaric's door. And then, you know, Alaric answers the door, and it's Bonnie, and she comes in, which this is such a random pairing, I was thinking.
I thought that like, too.
How often have we gotten, like, just an Alaric Bonnie scene? Like, never.
This must be the only time.
Yeah, random pair. And then also, I'm just imagining, like, another student lives in this building and is first, Elena Gilbert came into Alaric's apartment alone and left. And now Bonnie Bennett? Yeah, that's weird.
Sketchy.
That is so weird.
So sketchy.
But anyway, yeah, optics aren't great, but whatever. I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it is, and for all intents and purposes, we know fine. So.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
They towed a line with Alaric's character, but they walked it well, I think.
Until we get to the Caroline stuff in a few years. But
yes, that's down the line.
We'll get there.
That's unfortunate that they did that. But right now, it's all good. We love Alaric.
Yeah.
And Bonnie says that she got Alaric's message. So she brought Elena's necklace that won't die. Mm-hmm. And Alaric, like, finally pulls himself away from looking at the photos to sort of look at Bonnie at this point. And he sees that she looks unhappy. So he asks if she's okay. And she admits that she's been better. She's not doing too great. And then Alaric is just like, listen, Jeremy is an idiot. I was once a Jeremy. He'll learn eventually. Yeah. Which I liked. I liked this little moment between them because we get so little of them.
I know. I did too. And I like how it's like Alaric feels like the father of everybody in the group.
Yeah.
He's so like, you know, guiding and parental and will like be there for all of them.
Yes.
My only thing was I was like, this reasoning sounds a little boys will be boys for me.
A little bit.
But he is trying, so I do appreciate it.
And he does say he'll learn eventually.
Yeah.
So hopefully
he'll get out of that.
He will. Yeah. But Alaric, like, again, he just kind of moves on from that. He's also very down to business this episode. He's like, I've been looking at these photos, and there's an image that looks familiar. Mm-hmm. And he holds up a photo, and then Elena's necklace side by side, and says, I was right. And Bonnie realizes that the symbol on the necklace is the same symbol that's, like, in the photo.
Yeah.
And Alaric is like, your grandmother said this necklace belonged to the witch that put the hybrid curse on Klaus, right? Well, this symbol is repeated all over the wall, and I've been trying to figure out what it means, and now I know. And he goes over to the Post-its he has, and he writes on it and shows it to Bonnie, and it says, witch.
Yep.
This reveal really hit. I liked that little reveal, that's what that symbol meant.
Yeah.
That worked. I like that. We're building in reveals, and that's a little bit better than the Mikael one, then there'll be even more payoff later.
Yeah, because it's interesting how the vampire werewolf one earlier, you know, like we talked about, he's going back and forth, and it's kind of like a circle and a circle with like waves around it. Like it's a sun and a moon type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, okay, he's just piecing it together. This one having the logic of like the necklace being attached to the witch and, you know, like, and also knowing Rebekah wore that necklace for years. Like there's something so interesting and like, you know, they're building towards something on a first watch. You're like, yeah, it's so interesting.
Absolutely.
And so Alaric is so excited. But I kind of feel like Bonnie doesn't actually care. So
I know. I feel like she's like, I have a boyfriend who's cheating on me with
she's
ghosts.
like, my heart literally just got broken. I want to go home and like eat ice cream and cry. But cool. Congrats.
Yeah, great. Okay.
But anyway, she's there for it.
She's good. She's being a good sport.
She is.
Playing along.
She is. It's a distraction, if nothing else.
That's true.
Speaking of which, actually, at Stefan's room now.
Oh my god.
Rebekah opens the door and like walks right in. She starts opening up drawers, going through stuff. She is having so much fun, which I think this is so funny. Rebekah's so real for snooping. This was such a high school like activity. I feel like I remember like our friend group being specifically obsessed with snooping in high school.
Oh, there was so much snooping.
It was like a theme that we were like, we always were like, if there's an opportunity to snoop somewhere, we'll do
snoop.
it.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know what it is about being like 17 and being like, I need to know everything. But anyway, Elena is more mature than everyone else.
Of course.
Because she just stays in the doorway saying they shouldn't be there. It's not right to look through his stuff and invade his privacy. Yeah. Meanwhile, Rebekah's pulling out his underwear being like, well, this has changed since the 20s. And Elena's just fed up. She's asking Rebekah like,
please tell me.
Yeah, are you just going to keep going through Stefan's stuff all night? Are we ever going to talk about this story that you supposedly have? And Rebekah says Elena's no fun. You know, she's just trying to have a good time. Yeah. And she asks what Elena wants to know. And so Elena finally walks into the room and asks, like, how did they get to America? Like, you know, clearly they were there based on the cave paintings. Mm-hmm. And Rebekah explains that a plague hit their homeland and their parents lost a child. We all know from originals, watch originals. Yeah. And so they wanted to leave their homeland to go somewhere else where they could protect their family's fate. Which I also think this is interesting because it works well towards things that happen in the originals too. Yeah. Like the phrasing actually really applies to originals, which I like. And Rebekah reveals that her mother knew a witch, Ayana, who had heard from the spirits about a mystical place where people were granted with speed and with strength. You know, and that's obviously something their family was really looking for to stay protected. And Rebekah says they did live amongst those people. And Elena realizes that's the werewolves. You lived around the werewolves. And Rebekah says they were just our neighbors. That was funny. Yeah. And Rebekah says that they lived in peace with those werewolves for 20 years. And that's where her family had most of their children, including Rebekah, which I also thought was interesting. I was like, I'd never thought about where they were born, like before or after. But I think everyone, maybe Finn we know was born on the other side in the homelands of wherever. Yeah. But I think everyone post him was in America?
I think so.
Maybe not Elijah. I'm not sure.
I was going to say the only one I'm not sure is maybe Elijah.
But Klaus and Rebekah and Cole and Henrik would have all been in America for sure.
Yeah.
So just interesting. Not that it matters, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
And so Elena comments that like Rebekah makes this all sound so normal. And Rebekah says it was. And that sends us into another flashback where we see, and Rebekah is explaining over voiceover that like her family had found those caves that they would hide in when the wolves would turn at night. And so they would come back in the morning after it was all over. And we see Rebekah looking like through the window with all of these like necklaces and talisman and pendants. And of course we see the Esther, Elena, like the necklace we always see. And Rebekah touches it and it burns her fingers. And she like pulls back and we see a woman watching her. And Rebekah calls her Ayana. We know that that's Ayana. And she says that like Ayana burnt her. And Ayana says that it wasn't Rebekah's to touch. So they're obviously teasing that like Ayana is the original witch. They want us to think
they're definitely building it out.
And they will throughout this episode. So they're definitely trying to get us like thinking that.
Yeah. Which I also remembered in this scene. I was like, I'm remembering Ayana is supposed to be like a Bennett. She's in the Bennett bloodline.
Yeah.
How sick that the founding families, the quote unquote founding families, are founding families. And yet the Bennetts have been here literally since the 900s, thousands, whatever.
Yeah.
And the Bennetts still didn't make the cut.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mystic Falls, you will never beat the allegations.
You will never beat the allegations. I was kind of wondering about that actually because I was like, we do know that at some point they go to Salem because Bonnie says in the first season they went to Salem. There. So I don't know if Ayana stayed there much longer after. You kind of think after the originals did what they're about to do in this episode, she was like, peace.
Yeah, that's possible.
I heard about a settlement.
She was like, I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
That's possible.
So who knows how long they're actually. But yes, still true. They were there for 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
So.
Not great.
Yeah. Anyway.
And theoretically the Lockwoods too, potentially. Weird.
Potentially. At least one member of the Lockwoods.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah, from outside of that like room, they hear Klaus screaming, yelling for his mother. And everyone rushes outside and they see that Klaus is holding the body of their youngest brother, Henrik. I don't think we mentioned when you mentioned Henrik earlier that like he's like a child. Like he's
he's pretty young.
I don't know, like 11 or 12 or something.
Yeah, I was thinking like 13, 14. So like either way, like pretty young.
Yeah, he's a baby relative to the rest of them. Yeah. And so Rebekah is like narrating over this. That one full moon, Klaus and Henrik had decided to sneak out to watch the men turn into wolves, even though that was forbidden. And Henrik ended up paying the price for that. And so we see in the flashback, Esther comes in screaming and crying. Obviously, she's seeing her child dead. And she, like, is begging Ayana, saying, we must save him. Please, there must be a way. But Ayana is saying, like, the spirits will not give us away, Esther. Your boy is gone. And Esther is clutching his body, just screaming and crying. It's all very emotional.
Yeah.
Like, I think the first time... I think this is the first time that we hear the originals like theme music. They're emotional. Like they have that very specific tune that I always think of like when I think about the originals, like this very sentimental.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how else to describe it, but I really like it. And I think this is the first time it ever plays. It's the first time I noticed it. And so Rebekah pulls us back into the present day from that memory saying that was one of the last moments that our family had together as humans, clearly signaling to us that like Henrik's death was a huge trigger in creating vampires.
Yeah, definitely. At this point in the story, Elena gets a call, which Rebekah's like, that'll be Damon checking up on you.
Yeah, everyone knows.
Yeah, and she's right. It is Damon. And Elena asks, like, where he is, and he's saying he doesn't know, but he's overdressed. And then we see he's like in this bar where there's like music playing.
Yeah.
And Stefan at the bar with Damon says to him that he'll be, you know, at the bar getting a drink. And Elena hears Stefan in the background and is like, is that Stefan? What are you doing not in the cellar? And Damon is like, yeah, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. We're good. And Elena is like, how could you free him? What are you doing? But Damon just hangs up.
He always hangs up on people. If he doesn't want to have a conversation, he doesn't.
Not, he's protecting his peace. And I'm here for it. But yeah.
But causing chaos for everyone else.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. So then we like go to Damon and Stefan at the bar. And Damon asks Stefan what they're drinking. And Stefan says he wants something a little warmer and a little blonder. Oof. And like makes a gesture kind of nodding at the bartender who comes over to take their order. And Damon immediately compels her name is Callie, to get him a shot of whiskey and to give Stefan a shot of her. Mm-hmm. So some real brother bonding.
Yeah.
And Stefan is of course like, what is the catch here? Like, come on, it's so transparent. And Damon tells him there's no catch, drink up, it's on me. So Stefan starts feeding from the bar to Callie's wrist right out in the open at the bar. Yeah. Damon like kind of positions himself to kind of block it.
As much as he can.
As much as he can. But they're still just doing it in the open.
At the bar.
Yeah. And then we see later Damon and Stefan are like playing quarters, like they're flipping quarters into little shot glasses. Callie is sitting on Damon's lap.
That killed me.
They're having fun. And then Damon eventually sends Callie to get more whiskey because they've polished off basically a whole bottle,
which feels like Damon has, because Stefan's drinking from Callie.
That's true. So. Yeah, Damon is like, I have to be blackout to do this. I can't.
How he feels about most things, I fear.
Yeah, unfortunately true. And then Damon asks Stefan like how he's so good at, because he's sinking the quarters like at every turn.
Yeah.
And Damon asks him how he's so good at drinking games if he's been on the bunny diet. And Stefan says the bunny diet gave him a lot of time to practice. Wallow in despair, flip a quarter into the shot glass, goes in perfectly. Drown in guilt, another flip that goes in perfectly. Regret my existence, another flip that goes in perfectly. It's precision born out of tragic boredom. Drink up, brother. Unfortunately, Stefan being so good at this game is so attractive to me. No, I'm like, he's killing it. I'm like, I love this.
It kind of is, but I was like, he's definitely that like annoying guy who's just good at everything.
I know. Well, yeah, he definitely is. Yeah. I feel like they've kind of alluded to that before because they definitely Stefan have. Like, didn't he go to Harvard for a hot minute? And like,
I think so.
I feel like that's dropped in season 1.
He can cook. Like,
yeah, he's just good. Yeah, his mozzarella. Yeah,
his mozzarella. We know he's just good at everything.
He's just good at everything.
He's just one of those guys. We all know somebody like that who's just good at everything.
Yeah,
it's
Stefan, unfortunately. But yeah, Damon is like, I've wasted so much time trying to tell you how boring you are, and now you finally agree. And Stefan is like, let's cut this out. Like, you are worse than Elena, Damon, if you think just getting me drunk and trying to do some brotherly bonding is gonna pull me back from the edge. Mm-hmm. And Damon tells Stefan that he actually likes living on the edge, but Stefan is just unable to resist falling over it, which is very true. And then Callie at this point comes back with the other bottle of whiskey and sits on Damon's lap again.
Yeah, just like resuming position.
She's like, okay, I'm back.
This actress was probably like, this is the best day of my life. I've never booked such a good game.
Yeah, she's like, this is great. All I have to do is just sit on their lap, basically.
Yeah, Ian Somerhalder's lap.
Yeah, great gig.
Yeah.
And Damon is like, but then again, you know, who am I to judge anything? And he flips a coin into the glass and is like, drink up, brother. And then he like holds Callie out to Stefan.
Yeah, that's what Stefan's drinking. Yeah. Really. How she has any blood left, don't know.
Not sure. Yeah. She's probably going to pass out soon, but
probably. But anyway, we go back to the Salvatore house. Rebekah and Elena are just fully hanging out in Stefan's room, which I love.
I like that, funny. Yeah.
Rebekah's literally sitting on the bed reading Stefan's diaries. Elena obviously is refusing to participate in that, sitting on the side. And Elena asks Rebekah, like, continue the story. Are you, like, done with invading Stefan's privacy? But Rebekah like gets up and she examines a photo that's sitting there of Stefan and Elena together, and she says, I don't get you two as a couple. And Elena's like, why would you? And she says, you don't know anything about who he really is, which I was like, she is right. Like, Rebekah only knows like a very specific.
Oh, this is so interesting.
Well, I think it's true of Elena too. That Elena
I think it's true really for both. Yeah,
that's true. It is true for both.
I was gonna say but I almost more so agree with Rebekah. Like, I feel like they both like obviously don't know like the full Stefan. I mean, Rebekah hasn't seen Stefan in like 90 years, so she can't really know him like that well. But I do feel like it's a good point to be like, Elena can never really fully know Stefan because she doesn't understand the bloodlust.
That's true.
Every other episode, Elena is like, I've seen Stefan at his worst. And then he kills a whole village.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she just doesn't fully get it.
Yeah, but I think Elena understands way better than Rebekah does about the guilt and the remorse, and that Stefan at his core is not that person. Yes, like he is this like vampire who wants to hunt and kill and doesn't care about humans.
Yeah.
But that's so not Stefan, like as an actual person, which Rebekah doesn't understand. And so that's the thing where it's like Rebekah's looking at it through the lens of like any vampire, and Elena doesn't understand that at all. Mm-hmm. But I do think Elena understands Stefan as a person on a level that like Rebekah really does not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is interesting. They're kind of both right. But I do think in this scene, I'm like, Elena is more right, where Rebekah doesn't really get Stefan at his core at all. That Stefan doesn't want to be that person that he was in the 20s with her. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they like keep talking about that. Rebekah like goes on a little speech about vampires and being the predatory species. Yeah. And she says like, we don't have time to care about humans and their still lives, which is also where I'm like, Elena's right in this conversation because Rebekah is crazy for saying that. Rebekah's one personality trait. Her one personality trait is how bad she wants to be human and how much she like is envious of human lives. We're already starting to see that.
Yeah, literally the through line. That's the only plot they give Rebekah in Vampire Diaries is that
originals for
and
the most
in originals
part.
Too a little bit. Yeah, not as strong, but like
I think she's made her peace in originals, like with being a vampire and everything.
Yeah, and there's so much else going on.
And there's so much else going on, but it's still a very present component of her story about how much she really wants a normal life.
Yeah.
And again, we're already seeing that. Elena calls Rebekah out for that. She's like, oh, yeah, that's why you're doing this crazy runway show just to pick out a dress for homecoming because you don't care about human lives or what they do at all.
She's lying to herself.
She's lying to herself for sure. And so Elena's like over it and she says that she's leaving and she starts to walk out. But Rebekah stops her saying like, well, there is more to the story. But Elena's like, and you're not going to tell it. Like, clearly you have no intention of telling me this story. Rebekah is just pushing her around. And Rebekah stops her saying, the necklace wasn't Stefan's to give. It belonged to the original witch. Now that's piqued Elena's interest. Now she'll listen. And she asks if that means the witch who put the hybrid curse on Klaus. And Rebekah says, not just the hybrid curse. She's the one that turned us into vampires. And that leads us into another flashback where we see Ayana. Again, it's an Ayana fake out. And she's meeting with Mikael and Esther. And they are begging Ayana to help protect their children, to call on the spirits, to do what they must to help save them. Just a short little scene, but it's like, again, building up the Ayana, like, fake out, and building up the idea that Mikael and Esther want to protect their children, to do something, some sort of magic in order to save them. And so Rebekah abruptly, like, cuts off this story, saying that she needs a drink. Like, she just doesn't tell past that point. Yeah. So they go down to the library, and Elena asks if vampirism was intended to be a form of protection. And Rebekah's like, obviously. Like,
yeah, duh.
Yeah, what else could it be? And Elena's like, a curse?
Yeah, what?
This is where I think like the Stefan mentality is a lot closer to that than to Rebekah's, of thinking of it as like a protection. I think Stefan totally views vampirism as a curse.
Yeah. Which I feel like Rebekah also thinks of it as a curse too.
I know. Again, Rebekah's lying to herself for sure.
Definitely.
But Rebekah explains that her parents were the ones that really saw it as just a way to keep their children alive. That's what she means by calling it a protection. And Elena asks, like, why didn't you guys just leave? Like, don't live with werewolves.
Yeah.
And Rebekah says it was because of pride. It was because Mikael didn't want to run. He forced them to stay and they had to fight. And that meant that they had to be superior. Where the werewolves could bite, they had to bite harder. Where they were fast, they had to be faster. They had to have agility and strength and heightened senses. And it's so interesting, this like framing of vampirism as an answer to werewolves and as a form of protection and as a heightened version of everything that they are. It really had me like thinking a lot watching this about how they are so like matched for match. Like each point to each point is very well lined up like that. And obviously, the original parents had it so right. They were so successful, these kids will not die. Yeah. Or even when they do die, they come back.
Yeah, they always come back.
So Mikael and Esther were too successful.
Yeah, unfortunately. But then we go back into another flashback, and Mikael, Esther, and Ayana are still talking. And Michael's like, we could live forever. And Ayana's like, but at what cost? The spirits will turn on you if you do this. But Esther does not care. She is also begging Ayana, But Ayana's like, no, I will have no part in this. And she just leaves.
Yeah, she says it's the making of a plague.
Yes, making of a plague. And which was kind of true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think it is. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And after Ayana leaves, Mikael tells Esther, like, if Ayana won't do it, you must. Mm-hmm. Like, this is in your hands, my love. And in the present, Elena is like, but how could Esther do anything? And Rebekah tells her that Esther was a witch. She is the original witch, not Ayana, like they've been kind of building up to this whole episode. And
yeah, it's so funny how she says it, too. She's like, the witch of the original family, original witch.
Obviously.
Duh.
Yeah,
you Rebekah assume that.
Yeah, she's telling all this like never before heard lore as if it's like common knowledge.
Yeah, she's like, read a book.
Yeah, literally. Google is free.
That is what she's giving Elena right now.
She really is. But yeah, she's saying, you know, all these things like it's the original witch. Obviously, it's Esther. And Rebekah clarifies that even though, you know, obviously witches were in their family, Rebekah herself is not a witch because a vampire is an abomination of nature. You can't be both. And thus, Esther never turned into a vampire either. She stayed a witch. And Elena asks, you know, how they all ended up turning. And Rebekah tells her that Esther called on the sun for life, the ancient white oak tree for immortality. And that night, Mikael offered all of the children wine laced with blood and then drove his sword through their hearts.
Yeah.
And Elena is like, what? Like, Mikael was the one that killed all of you to do this. And Rebekah's just like, yeah, and he wasn't delicate about it either. Obviously, we can see Mikael's not a delicate person at all.
Yeah, there's no way he would be. And obviously, she still holds so much, like, resentment for this. She picks up a bottle of wine and snaps the neck of it and throws it into the fire.
Yeah.
So, clearly, like, this is such a touchy subject that 1,000 years later, she still holds so much, like, trauma over. Which is understandable when you go into the flashback here and see Klaus and Rebekah wake up on the floor covered in blood, and they both have just clearly been stabbed. They don't know what's happening. They're obviously like confused and scared.
Yeah.
And Mikael walks in with this random girl who also, she was smirking. I was like, what is this girl's face? I was like, I didn't think they'd figured out compulsion at this point. So either like Mikael knew how to compel her, or I don't know what, because this girl is just like cheesing, which I thought was funny.
That is it. She had her one chance to be in the show, and she was like, I'm not wasting it by being upset that I'm being fed on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, which also I was like, we also only see Rebekah and Klaus in this scene. It was like,
so confusing.
We got Elijah for the episode. Why not even Elijah? Like, I understand they probably hadn't cast Cole and Finn.
Yes, definitely.
Fine. We don't have to have everyone in the scene. But to not even bring Elijah, he's already in the episode.
Which I guess maybe the logic is they know there's other siblings coming, and so if they kind of break him out too, it's like, well, you know there's others we're not acknowledging here. I don't know. And trying to strengthen the Rebekah-Klaus bond, too.
That's true. It is more about Rebekah and Klaus a little bit. But anyway, Rebekah then is explaining, you know, as they're transitioning into becoming vampires and then becoming vampires, Rebekah explains it was euphoric. The feeling of power was indescribable, but the witch Ayana was right about there being consequences. Nature fought back, and for every strength we had, there was a weakness. The sun became our enemy. We had to stay inside for weeks. And though we found a solution, obviously the daylight rings, and we're seeing sort of all of these images as
she's narrating.
So then we see her daylight ring. And Rebekah says, even though there was a solution to the sun problem, there were other problems. Neighbors who had opened their homes to us could now keep us out. Flowers at the base of the white oak tree burned them, obviously vervain, and then also prevented compulsion, which this was also a little plot
they don't know
hole.
that
yet.
Yeah,
they don't know compulsion yet at this point. Like, that's...
Yeah, originals lore.
Originals lore. Yeah. Not really a spoiler, but yeah, they don't know compulsion at this point.
Yeah.
So, little mini...
But maybe just to fill into, for the viewer at least, to be like, vervain.
Yeah, vervain, this is what you know it as. Yeah. And then the spell that decreed that they gave them life, or the spell decreed that the tree that gave them life could also take it away. The white oak tree, of course. So we burn it to the ground, and then we see them burning the tree to the ground.
Yeah, I love this. Like, it's such an iconic... Like, all of these images. But this one especially.
All of these images. And then she says, but the darkest consequence was something that Esther and Mikael never anticipated the hunger. Blood had made us reborn, and it was blood that we craved above all else. We could not control it. And with that, the predatory species was born.
Yeah. Love that.
Such a good little monologue that she has. And I love all the images that they do.
I know, I do too. I love all of like Rebekah reaching for the plant at the tree. Yeah. The tree burning, and like Elijah and Rebekah and Klaus standing there watching it. Like all of the visuals are so strong in this whole segment. Yeah. I love them.
I know. I felt like I wasn't doing it justice, just like saying
no, it's
what
so
she's
visual.
saying,
it's so hard to like really get into it. So rewatch the sequence if you haven't watched it in a while, because I do feel like that one is like worth a quick rewatch, because it is just so visual. But we have to go back to the bar real quick and check in on the boys.
Of course.
Damon is dancing on a table as usual.
I love it.
That man loves to move.
He does.
Stefan is feeding on a girl as usual. That man loves to eat.
Yep.
That's the two brothers, like right there for you. Yep. But of course it is like Callie, the waitress that Stefan is feeding on. And, you know, a woman starts randomly like watching Stefan like, what is going on there? And so Damon vamps over and like compels her to like not notice, forget what she saw, whatever. And he grabs a scarf randomly and he like goes over and gets Stefan off of Callie and puts the scarf on her and like sends her away, you know, saying like, let her go, like he's up.
How she's not completely drained of blood, we can't be sure.
Unclear. She must have like a drop left in her.
Yeah.
She needs to go get a cookie and an orange juice stat. And Damon tells her to run along, clearly being like, we gotta stop. Like,
she's probably gonna die soon.
So they go up to the bar and they order more drinks, regular drinks this time. And Stefan asks Damon to tell him like, what is going on with this whole jailbreak thing? Like, just fess up. And so Damon says like, I thought you could use a hug. Just, again, playing. He's just trying to dance around and be jokey and act like there isn't something going on here when Stefan's very well aware there is something going on here. And Damon does eventually say, like, maybe I wanted to remind you what freedom was like before Klaus took it from you. I thought this was a good angle to take with Stefan here.
I think so, too, because it does kind of work.
Yeah, it does, because I think without humanity, obviously, you can't take any of the brotherly appeals. Obviously, those aren't working.
No.
But I think freedom is a thing, emotionless or not. Everybody wants freedom.
Yeah.
And so he does say, you know, like, I'm trying to show you what freedom is like. And Stefan says, well, as long as Klaus is alive, like, I have to do what he says. Like, there's no way around that. And Damon tries to, like, get Stefan mad enough to want to do something. Like, he's like, you have given up. Like, you just need to, like,
Get mad, do something.
Get mad, want to do something, want to challenge this here, want to change this situation. But Stefan says, like, Klaus can't even be killed. Like, there's nothing to do here. But they hear from behind them, maybe I can help with that. And they turn around, and behind them is Mikael, who has shown up at the bar. And he says, the Salvatore boys, I presume. And Stefan, recognizing him from the 1920s, says, Mikael. So the big shock that he's found them at the bar, and we'll see in a little bit what he's going to do. But of course, we got to go back to the Elena Rebekah storyline before we talk about that.
Yeah, back at the Salvatore house, Elena is asking Rebekah why Mikael even started hunting Klaus in the first place. And Rebekah says that when Klaus made his first kill, it triggered the werewolf gene, and he therefore became Mikael's greatest shame. And Elena is like, yes, we know that part.
Yeah, we know.
Yes, this one I actually know. Elijah told me this. And Klaus, you know, isn't Mikael's biological son. And Rebekah explains that Esther tried to make things right by putting the curse on Klaus. But Mikael's pride, obviously it was his weakness as a human. It only became amplified as a vampire. And he went on a rampage and killed half the village. And then Esther herself. Elena is shocked again. Obviously, all of these things that happened with the original family are, like, shocking.
Yeah, the family is nuts.
Yeah, truly. And Elena is like, Mikael killed your mother? And Rebekah says that Mikael had said Esther broke his heart so he would break hers. And that Klaus watched as Mikael did this.
Yeah, interesting.
And then we get a little flashback where, as Klaus buries Esther, Rebekah is saying to Elena in the present that Mikael took off in a rage after that, and then everyone scattered except Klaus, who stayed with her to bury Esther. And we see in that flashback, Rebekah and Klaus are standing side by side at the grave, and Rebekah tells Klaus, you know, Esther did not hate you. She's sorry that Esther turned her back on him, but she will never do that. And Rebekah promises that, they will always be together. And Elijah walks, and she'll never leave him. And Elijah walks toward them and says, nor will I. Love them.
Yeah.
And Rebekah says, we will stick together as one, always and forever. Of course, their little motto as a family.
Which I think this is the first episode we're hearing it. We've heard this is the second time we've heard it. But this is the first episode we're hearing that always and forever.
I think so, yeah.
And it's such an interesting setup because obviously this is not the vibes they are giving.
No,
in this
not
day
in the
and
present
age.
day. No.
Obviously, Elisha's currently in a box, so clearly this is not what they're giving.
As are all of the other siblings, which they weren't around, but still.
So it's interesting to see this big fracture when we're seeing in the past, the last little bit of the scene is they all hold hands in a circle. Yeah. Very symbolic visually of their connection and of their unbreakable bond. Yeah. And we go back to the present where Elena's like, always and forever, even though he locked you in a coffin for 90 years.
She's got a little bit of a point. But again,
she definitely has a point.
Fearless. Yeah, just throwing this out there. I'm like, I would not be saying this, but okay.
No. But yeah, she's calling her out, and it is fair. And Rebekah explains that as a vampire, their emotions are heightened. She says, I'm stubborn, Elijah is moral, and Nick has no tolerance for those who disappoint him, which is a very nice way of being he's a jerk. I don't know. And Rebekah says that over 1,000 years, they've all made that mistake at least once of disappointing Klaus. And Rebekah says that she herself has made it several times. Yep. And Elena's like, but you still love him? And Rebekah is like, he's my brother. I'm immortal. Yeah. Should I spend an eternity alone instead? Which I thought this conversation was crazy because I was like, how does Elena seem to not get this? Elena would 100% stand with Jeremy through any of this. Yeah. All of this. He literally cheated on Bonnie last week, and obviously she's mad at him, but she's not really mad at him.
Yeah, it's not like she'll never speak to him again.
Yeah, so it's I think it's funny that Elena seems to not get this when I think Elena is a person who I would be like, Jeremy could do anything. Jeremy could burn down Mystic Falls, and Elena would probably still forgive him.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know anything Jeremy could do that Elena wouldn't forgive him for.
I know. I thought this conversation, I was like, and I think Elena kind of...
We'll get there eventually. Yeah, she'll get that perspective.
Around on it. Yeah.
But it is interesting that in this first sequence, she's really not thinking it. I think she's just not thinking about Klaus as Rebekah's brother. That's just a different way to frame it than, somebody else. But anyway, Rebekah is not over with the story. There is more to be told. Or no, she is over the story.
Yeah, she's like, I don't care.
Yeah, she's like, this is it. Story time is over. I'm not telling you anything else. It's time for Elena to leave. And she says that she's given Elena 1,000 reasons not to wake up Mikael, and Elena's gonna do it anyway. And she knows that, obviously they're waking up Mikael to kill Klaus.
Obviously.
And Elena says, he has a hold over my life, over Stefan's life. Of course we want him dead. That's no secret. And Rebekah says, do what you need to. Wake Mikael at your own peril, but make no mistake, if you come after my brother, I will rip you apart. And I get my temper from my father. Interesting with how crazy he has been to claim that, to be like, my abusive father, I'm the same as him. And she tells Elena.
So alike.
Yeah, we're just exactly the same. And then she tells Elena to leave. But because obviously that works, to be like, yeah, that psycho, my father, I'm his daughter.
It reminds me of those you always see them ads on Facebook and stuff like that. The shirts, they have a novel written on them. Yeah. They're my father has a crazy temper. He'd kill a whole village, and so would I. We're the same blood. It's just 1,000 words on a t-shirt.
That's Rebekah.
That's Rebekah's giving.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of that crazy father, at the bar, obviously Mikael has showed up, and we see him kind of in the middle of asking Stefan 20 questions.
Yeah, he's quizzing.
Yeah, about Klaus's whereabouts. And Stefan is just repeatedly answering, I can't tell you, I can't tell you. And obviously because Klaus has compelled him to do whatever he says. And Klaus tells Stefan to keep his mouth shut. Yeah. So of course, Stefan can't tell Mikael anything. And Damon is basically I hope 20 questions isn't your secret weapon.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work. But Mikael assures all of them, he will find Klaus. And Damon starts to try to say something about that when Mikael punches his hand through Damon's chest and says to Stefan, one move and his heart is gone. Now, where is Klaus? What is the trick question that you need for me to ask to get you to tell me? And Damon is like, his emotions are off.
He's not going to save me. He doesn't care.
Can't care. Yeah. But Mikael is and I think this is a really brilliant point. He's really? His tie to Klaus is so strong that he would let his brother die?
Yeah.
There's no way. And Mikael ends up being right in this. And Michael tells Stefan to think. And Stefan thinks for a minute. You can see because Paul Wesley's doing like the facial acting. He's like, Watch the video version on YouTube. Yeah. He's like, thinking, pensive. And he says nothing. He literally doesn't say a thing. So Michael is just like, clearly you are a dead end. And now so is Damon. And he moves his hand in Damon's chest. And Stefan grabs Michael's arm and is like, wait, I can get Klaus to come back to Mystic Falls. Oh, I wish we'd remembered this scene for the Humanity Switch episode.
There's so many details in here. I'm like, we could do a whole hour-long special just about like these 4 episodes or so of Stefan's humanity being off.
Oh my God,
they're so rich with just like his emotions must be flickering. Just seeing Michael punch his hand into Damon's chest must have flickered them on for like a second. He really must have thought he was seeing him die.
No, like, he must have.
So I don't believe that his emotions aren't, like we've already talked about, flickering. They are flickering every episode. Yeah. And then at this point, Michael removes his hand from Damon's chest and is like, there it is. There's our loophole. He just wipes his hands off.
He's just like, whatever.
A hard day's work done.
All in a day's work. Get Klaus back to Mystic Falls and I will gladly drive a stake through his heart. Fail, and I'll drive it through yours.
Oh, Michael.
I kind of love Michael. He's a good villain.
He's a very good villain. He's so hateable.
Mm-hmm. He's well cast, too.
He's very well cast. He's a very good actor. And, he lives up to, like, Klaus being afraid of him. You know? Like, just being a brute. Like, that's so Michael, and it works very well. But anyway, we got to check back in at the caves where there's still... It's been a minute, and they still are trying to piece this sucker together. It could take years, but it will only take them, like, 48 hours.
Yeah, they're
crazy.
Better than most, like, like world-renowned linguists.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Bonnie, Elena, and Alaric are standing there looking at all of the wall paintings again, and Alaric is saying that, like, they filled in what they could. Vampire, werewolf, slaughter, mayhem. They're getting it. And Elena identifies the white oak tree, like, that was used in the spell on the wall, and she identifies when they, like, burnt it down. Mm-hmm. And Alaric says that the piece that they don't understand is the witch symbol with, like, what looks like a bleeding heart under it, and it being upside down, which is usually the symbol for death. And Elena questions, like, well, there's this other symbol, like, right next to, you know, this witch death symbol. Like, why would that one be connected to the witch's death? But Alaric isn't really sure. They can't figure it out. But Elena puts it together, and she says, oh, my God, Rebekah doesn't know the real story. Which, first of all, how did a villager...
I was going to say, I literally just wrote, who wrote this? Who knows this?
That's what I said. Is first of all, what villager paid attention to these secret goings-on of the original family to then go and put it in a cave, like, and draw it for hours with a knife?
Oh, my God.
Like, and first of all, who knew this? Second, who recorded it? This is just crazy. It's not like Klaus went and told his buddies afterwards and was like, guys,
guess what I did.
Yeah, like, I don't know how anybody knew this.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, the only thing that I was thinking could possibly make sense is, like, are we supposed to believe Klaus went back into this? I feel like no.
I think a random villager had to have watched or something. Or maybe Ayana as a witch knew what had happened through the spirits and had told somebody, or, something like that, or another witch. That's the only logical thing, is a random witch or somehow a villager was in the woods and was like, oh no!
Oh my God!
Yeah, and like told somebody. I don't know. It's so weird. But yeah, that was my first thought. I was like, who knew this?
Yeah, I was like, who wrote this?
Rebekah spent 1,000 years not knowing this, and somebody just randomly saw it and wrote it down.
Yeah, it was like, I had the same thought. I was like, okay, sure.
But anyway, so Elena now knows the real story.
Yes.
And she's confident enough in that she goes straight to the Salvatore house, where Rebekah's just hanging out, having a drink. Elena storms in with the photos of the cave drawings. And Rebekah tells her to leave. Like, she's over it. She's clearly had enough for the day and doesn't want any more of this. But Elena asks how she knows that Michael killed her mother. And Rebekah says that Klaus saw the whole thing and he told her. And Elena immediately says, he lied. Girl holds no punches. She's not trying to be. She's not like, let's sit down, honey.
Yeah, she's not like, sit. I'm about to blow your whole. Like,
she's like, he lied. He's a liar, actually.
He's a liar.
That's not true.
Yeah.
So then she shows Rebekah all of those cave drawings that she like brought the photos of, and she's explaining like what the symbols mean, and she shows like the story of the mother's death, and she says like the hybrid killed the original witch, not Mikael, Klaus. Poor Rebekah is obviously extremely upset and freaked out by this.
She's not happy.
Imagine your understanding of your entire life story being completely flipped upside down 1,000 years after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy in general to completely change your perspective of your family, but 1,000 years later after, like, believing it for that long is crazy.
And it's such, like, a key moment for Rebekah and Klaus having, like, the bond they have.
They built their whole connection at the start.
Like, the fact that he stayed and buried her with him.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a huge
literally
part of
led
the
into
story.
the always and forever.
And that they've been running from Mikael because of this for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So, like, it completely changes her understanding of her relationship with her brother. And Elena is, like, continuing to explain that the original witch cursed Klaus and she rejected him, and that werewolves are aggressive and violent, and when you are turned into a vampire, all of that is heightened. And, like, Klaus obviously made up this whole lie just so that he wouldn't lose Rebekah, just so that he could hang on to her. Rebekah is obviously massively in denial here. She starts ripping up the photos. She's throwing them into the fires. Elena is pleading to Rebekah that Klaus has a hold on everyone. He's in control of everybody's lives, and they need to stand up. They need to make it stop. She's, like, rallying. She's trying to rally the troops here.
Yep.
Rebekah is going through a personal trauma, and Elena's making it a little about her.
A little bit,
But Rebekah is obviously, like, can't put up with this, and she completely vamps out, running at Elena and grabbing her by the throat, and she's yelling at her until she finally does let her go, and Rebekah falls to her knees just crying, and Elena's just, like, awkwardly standing there at the side, kind of looking, like, sad, but, like, is also kind of just watching. I was like, Elena, where's that compassion that you're famous for?
She can't. I mean, a little iffy to, like, even get near Rebekah.
I wouldn't trust Rebekah, but still, I was like,
say something to be like, I'm sorry.
You
like,
can't
nothing.
even, like, sit next to her and just at least look like you're kind of, I don't know, feeling for her. I thought this was so out of character.
I thought so too. Yeah, this and the next episode, I'm like, I don't know.
I think it is Elena's treatment of Rebekah in general that is very out of character throughout the series for the most part.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. It's very odd.
Yeah, she's the same way with Catherine, but Catherine, I feel like she has way more justification in being
more.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Catherine antagonizes her, like,
from
the start.
Her entire family and, like, ruins her life. Rebekah is kind of just there.
Yeah. She's kind of annoying at some points, but, like, Rebekah's not doing that much.
Yeah, I don't know why Elena has such a problem with Rebekah, but we're going to know soon why Rebekah has such a problem with Elena.
Oh, for sure. I have more to say on the Rebekah-Elena relationship in the next episode, for sure. But anyway, as Elena's, like, you know, we see her looking on at Rebekah sadly for a minute, and then we cut away to some lighter conversation with the boys.
Lighter at the start.
Later at the start. Damon and Stefan are walking out of the bar. Michael's gone at this point. Damon is sort of goading Stefan about waiting to the last minute to have his breakthrough. And Stefan is just like, it was not a breakthrough. Obviously, you know, a little lying to himself here. And Damon mocks him and is like, oh, my brother's about to die. I just had to save his life for the bajillionth time. Careful, Stefan. Your humanity is showing. And Stefan is like, you're right, Damon. You reminded me of what freedom felt like. And when we kill Klaus, I'll be free to leave. So I didn't do this for you. I did it for myself. Damon is just like, sure. Whatever you need to tell yourself, Stefan. And Stefan grabs Damon and shakes him and is like, why are you doing this? Why is everyone trying to save me? And Damon just tells Stefan that he's saving him because he has to. Stefan saved his life by getting Klaus's blood, you know, from the werewolf bite to save Damon. So he can't just leave his brother in a cell to rot.
Yeah, he owes him.
Yeah, he owes him. And Stefan is like, better be careful, brother. Your humanity is showing. And of course, classic Damon in denial himself. Everyone in this episode in denial about something.
Yep.
Damon punches Stefan in the face.
What a reaction to this is crazy.
I know, it's like you have feelings.
Yeah, it's such an escalation. Right in the face.
Okay. Anyway, Stefan is like down on the ground from this punch alone, and he's about to get up when Damon like flips him over back onto the ground, like on his back, and then kicks Stefan in the stomach like a little bit ways down the parking lot. And then Damon just walks off. And we see Stefan just like coughing and kind of smiling. I think he's kind of like...
I think the humanity list, you get like satisfaction in weird places.
I think so too. Yeah, he's definitely having fun, at least like goading. Yeah, at least having this little moment with Damon.
Yeah. Oh, also I wanted to say at the very start of the scene when Damon and Stefan are like walking out of the bar together, they walk so perfectly in sync.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Satisfying. They both have this perfect like lazy stroll, which I've seen in other things where like anytime the two of them are walking together, they're so
always
satisfying.
in sync.
Yeah, they're very in sync. They have like the same sort of stride. It's very satisfying. I love it.
I'll have to rewatch it.
Yeah, I liked this one specifically.
Yeah.
Not as satisfying. We do a quick cut to the Salvatore house.
Where
Rebekah is just sobbing. She's alone on the floor in the library, just completely breaking down. I guess Elena just awkwardly like, I'm gonna go, and just like walked out. I don't know.
I guess.
She just left.
Yeah.
Not that she needs to stay there all night, but I don't know. Again, I'm like, why are we just hammering in here that Rebekah is alone and upset and Elena just won't comfort her? I don't know.
Not sure.
But anyway, we go to our last scene at the Gilbert house. The nice little wrap up of the day where Elena comes out of her bathroom now in her like pajamas and her sleep clothes. And we see Damon is laying on her bed like waiting for her. And he tells her that they got Mikael, that the plan is in motion. And he tells her that she can yell and kick and rant and scream all she wants about letting out Stefan. But, you know, obviously the implication there is, well, it worked. I got Mikael at least.
Yeah.
But Elena says that she won't. She doesn't want to. And Damon says, like, well, my plan did backfire. Like, I freed Stefan, and now he's an even bigger dick than he was before. But at least he's a dick that's on our side now.
Yeah.
So he's justifying it a little bit. But Elena says, like, I'm not mad. I'm just tired. Like, she just wants to go to bed. It's clearly been a long day. And so she starts, like, trying to pull the blankets off her bed, you know, to try to, like, kind of get ready for bed. But Damon won't move. He's on top of the blankets. He's not even, like, acknowledging her. He's just yapping away, theorizing about everything going on. And so she just gives up and crawls into bed under the blankets, like, right next to him. And they're just laying next to each other in bed. And they're speculating about the weapon that Mikael has. Maybe it was a stake carved from that original white oak tree before it burned down. And Elena says that she thinks she got Rebekah on their side. That, you know, Rebekah is just a girl who lost her mom too young, that she loves blindly and recklessly, even if it consumes her. And Elena sort of looks at Damon for a few seconds before continuing there, which is a significant spot to pause at, I feel. And Elena says, like, when it's all said and done, there's nothing more important than the bond of family. And Damon says, tell that to my brother. Clearly they're not in that same
They're not feeling that.
Not currently, no. And Elena says that, like, she thinks Damon will be the one to save Stefan. That Stefan won't come back because he loves Elena. It will be because he loves Damon. That line kills me. It makes me want to tear up and cry every time. It's not emotional enough to fully get me there, but I'm always like, oh, that hits your heart to be like, Damon, he's not coming back because he loves me. He's coming back because he loves you. Like, such a sweet thing to acknowledge. And obviously, sort of like we were saying earlier about the Rebekah stuff, like, Elena's starting to realize this bond of siblings in a way that she wasn't getting at the start of the episode. And we'll see next episode she's going to start to really get.
Yeah.
But anyway, Elena asks if she can just tell him the rest of it tomorrow. And he nods, and she starts to close her eyes and fall asleep. And he's just, like, watching her, gazing at her. So loving. Again, so intimate. It is. I always say this, but it's like, it really is. It's crazy how much they just escalate. And this is such a relationship thing to do. To just, like, lay in bed together and chat and fall asleep together. And it's so romantic.
I know. I love this scene. I love that they finally brought back, like, Elena's empathy. Like,
yes.
And, like, they showed that she really does relate to Rebekah in a lot of ways.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, all of those things were so relatable.
Yeah, everything she said was so relatable.
For Elena.
For Elena, yeah. But Elena wasn't seeming like she empathized at all. So I'm glad they did give her this, like, a little bit more on-character moment.
I think the thing with Rebekah is she's so afraid of her. She's such a loose cannon.
Yeah,
that it's hard to empathize in the moment. But clearly, like, retrospectively, Elena does really empathize with Rebekah.
Yeah. And then, of course, the moment between the two of them I love.
Yeah, I love.
So good.
It just kills me, though, that Elena goes to sleep with her full smoky eyelid.
Oh, their full lash set. Yeah. I was like, oh, girl.
I was like,
they're going to wake up on the pillow, but okay.
Yeah. So funny. They always say that to her. She always wakes up full face, too. I'm like, okay. Really realistic beauty standards for women.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, this scene made me be like, we're in the peak of the show.
Oh my gosh.
It'll never get better than this. These are the
will.
heydays.
It will.
It will, but we're really on a steep,
I know, it's so dramatically going up. And I just love all the original stuff in this episode. I love the originals generally. I think this like info dump of their history is so interesting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've talked at length about it for like an hour and a half so far.
Oh my god, yep.
But yeah, we'll have so much more to say on that in the next one, I feel. Mm-hmm. And just generally as we keep continuing in the season. So we should probably cut ourselves off there.
Yo, this was a good chance to turn it over to our voicemail host. Yeah. So let's hear what they had to say.
Hi, River Diaries. I just want to say I like season 3 of Vampire Diaries because it was special and it was just romantic for me. I love the Elena moments. I love Damon and Elena. And I also loved how Stefan got to stuff like that. I love the way they got to speak to the ghosts again of the people they loved. I just loved everything about it. I loved the voices, the way they spoke up for each other. I loved everything. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you to our voicemail host. And to wrap up this episode, for deaths, we have Henrik, the Mikaelson sibling that was killed by the werewolves. We see Klaus and Rebekah like after they're killed by Mikael. So I guess that counts as a kill for them.
Yeah, I would count it. We can assume also Mikael and Elijah, and of course Finn and Cole, but they're not even in the episode.
That's where I was like, I'm not really sure what to do with the count for this episode.
I think for the count, let's give Mikael, Rebekah, Klaus, and Elijah. I think because we see them, we should at least imply that we know Mikael kills them in this episode. So
yeah, and then we don't really see it. But we could also, I guess, count Klaus killing Esther.
That's true. That's an iffy one.
So, I don't know. This one was hard. It's like a lot of implied death.
And that one comes up so often other times that there might be a time to count it another time. So maybe we don't count that one.
Yeah, we can say no. So what is that? 4? Henrik, Elijah, Klaus, Rebekah. Oh, and then I guess Mikael is 5.
Yeah. Well, then there's also the random man that Rebekah kills, I think, in the village.
Yeah, I guess
it's implied. We see her feed on him, and she says that the impulse is too strong, so I assume she kills him. And then, there's so many references, because then they also references Klaus's first human kill, but we don't see that, so we wouldn't count that.
Yeah.
They also mentioned that Mikael kills half the village, which I would assume Klaus does. I don't know. That's also unclear. But we'll officially say Henrik, Mikael, Rebekah, Klaus, and Elijah. I think we should count the unknown man for Rebekah.
Okay, we can count all those. I don't
remember a bunch of deaths.
I don't know what that number is.
We don't know.
I can't count like that.
As we said, we know there's also half an entire village, so who knows? Your guess is better than ours.
Just leave it there. We'll get someone else to do the tally. Tell us what that adds up to.
Hopefully an easier category, or out of pocket, or would have done differently. Mm-hmm. I had one thing. This was kind of a hard one because it's such a serious episode, as like we've just been in that streak for a while. But mine that I would say for out of pocket was Elena just watching Rebekah cry and not doing anything. I was like, it's not even so out of pocket, but it's just so out of character. Yeah. Like, girl, you're not going to comfort her? You're not going to do anything?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I didn't really have anything that was like so out of pocket. It's such a serious and heavy episode.
So heavy, yeah.
So yeah, I think we can go with Elena. I didn't really have one.
Yeah. I at least would have done that differently. I think Elena could have done something, but it's just out of character.
Yeah.
But anyway, easy one then. Elena not comforting Rebekah.
Yeah.
So then quotes.
Yeah, quotes were a little bit more clear for me. I had 2 that I thought really stuck out. The first one, well, actually we really pretty much already said both of them. But the one that you just mentioned, when Elena is telling Stefan telling Damon that when Stefan comes back, it won't be because he loves me. It will be because he loves you.
That's a sweet one.
It's just so sweet. And also I love the way she's doing a great job of sounding like sleepy, quiet, like she's trying to like get wind down, and it's very intimate. Yeah, I think it's really well done.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I went mostly jokey with mine as usual.
There were a lot of good jokey ones too.
I had to do a classic Damon saying, make sure she doesn't power struggle you into a wheelchair. That really made me laugh. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Like I said, breaking her legs. We all know that's what Rebekah's gonna do.
Probably.
She can't kill Elena, but she can break both of her legs. She
definitely can.
And her arms.
Yeah, I'm surprised she never does actually physically. Yeah. Well, I guess she does in the end. But
yeah, that's true.
Anyway. And then the other one I was thinking of was just, I'm not going to repeat it, but that whole monologue that Rebekah does about how being a vampire was euphoric, but then there were all of these consequences, like the vervain, the sun, all those things.
Yeah, that was kind of my same one too. I specifically out of that pulled out, and with that, the predatory species was born.
Yeah.
That felt like the most hard-hitting part of that whole speech.
Yeah, that's like the punch at the end.
Yeah, the punch at the end. It felt like the most memorable. I felt like I'd heard that piece before, so maybe we should do that since we both went for that speech.
Yeah, I like that.
So best quote to Rebekah.
Yeah.
Then we've got best song. I feel it's an obvious winner, but I did have an honorable mention.
Same. Okay, yeah, same.
Okay, cool. Well, so one I did have is the Originals theme by Mikael Subi. I mean, the score always is fantastic. I do think that they have a fantastic original set of music.
Agreed.
But I specifically really always love and remember the like very specific Originals emotional theme. They use it a lot because the originals are so emotional.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We'll get into
so I
it
wanted
a
to call
lot
that
more.
one out because I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think to call that one out, but I do like it.
Yeah.
My honorable mention was going to be Turn It On by the Cadillac 3.
Oh, interesting.
It's the song that plays while Damon is dancing on the bar. And
that's fun.
I just love a good Damon dancing
That's so
moment.
random.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go with my other honorable mention, which is We Don't Eat by James Vincent McMorrow.
Oh,
and that's when Rebekah's crying and when Delena's in bed. The classic last emotional song. And I did think it was a good one, so I included that one. But for me, the winner was obvious.
The winner is obvious. Yeah.
Of course, it's Don't Stop Colors on the Wall by Foster the People, like we mentioned at the start.
Obvious.
Yeah, the photos being taken with the beat of the song. It's
That's
so
an
iconic.
Scene.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so memorable. It makes me want to listen to that song. I loved Foster the People in high
too,
school, so I was
yeah.
living for the scene at the time, and I am now. So
yeah,
easy
obvious winner.
Yeah. So we'll be adding Don't Stop Colors on the Wall to our Song of the Episode playlist, where we have the winners of every single best song from season 1, 2, into 3. And we also will be adding it to our playlist where we have all of the winners and honorable mentions for season 3. There's already so many songs in there and so many good ones.
So many, yeah.
So definitely check both of those out. They're linked in our various bios and descriptions. You'll also find there our TikTok and our Instagram. We always post clips from the podcast, clips from the show, fun edits, and all sorts of polls, Q&As. Mm-hmm. There's always places where we're trying to get you guys to interact, join the community of TRD and TBD. So join us there.
Yeah, and you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can watch the video version on YouTube if you're not already doing that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can see some of our facial expressions, outfits. Sometimes we coordinate. So yeah, join us there or wherever. And yeah, join us next week for season 3, episode 9. Homecoming.
A great one.
Just such a good episode.
Yeah.
We'll get into that next week.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Thanks for watching and or listening to this one.
Bye.